Albert Bateau had a magic box. Taking charge of Stade de Reims in 1950 at just 31 years old, Bateau would go on to become the most successful manager in the history of Ligue 1, winning the division 8 times with both Reims and Saint-Etienne, as well as finishing runner-up in 2 European Cups and third place at the 1958 World Cup with France. And the bedrock of his early success was a strategy that built on the work of Brazilian tactical innovator Flavio Costa. It's during the classic WM formation that was in vogue in Europe at the time. Bateau set out his side with a back four and then 3 perfectly linear pairs. Forgoing any width beyond his fullbacks, his 2 defensive midfielders sat behind 2 attacking midfielders who sat behind 2 forwards, forming a rectangle or magic box. The formation allowed Reims to outnumber their opponents in midfield, pouncing on second balls and limiting the opposition's ability to play out from defence, while their attacking fluidity was so impressive that they became the first side ever to attract the description champagne football. And as time went on, football evolved as it always does, and despite enduring popularity in South America into the 90s, the 4-2-2-2 largely fell out of favour. Until that is, Dougie Imrie entered the picture and dusted off his copy of Inverting the Pyramid. Having deployed it with his Morton side at Victoria Park earlier in the season, his own magic box turned into a selection box yesterday as the Rovers ran riot, sending 6 unanswered goals past Ross County and bringing an end to Tony Docherty's short spell in the Highlands. This is the Oh No 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 podcast. I am Duncan Cameron, and joining me for a festive feast tonight. First of all, it is Blair Hopcroft. A silly question to start off, Blair. How are you?
I'm great, mate. That was absolutely tremendous. And normally those excellent introductions are because of something really bad has happened, and we're like, right, we've got 2 minutes to fill at the beginning of this episode. We need to string this out a wee bit. And actually, this might just go on for a little while tonight because it was glorious.
That was the last thing my dad said to me yesterday. He says, "What are you going to talk about tomorrow if you've got nothing to complain about?"
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't remember how to structure these things. But we've also got Scott Fleming as well. How are you, Scott?
Aye, brilliant. I mean, I was back at Starts Park for the second time this season, but it was. I was confident that we were going to get a result just purely down to the fact that County had been dug meat for weeks. I know we did say the same going up there, but just there was a wee bit more of a sort of better feel around the team. The fact that we'd picked up a couple of positive results under the first few weeks of Dougie Imrie, so. Although I don't think anybody would have predicted that we were going to score another 5-6 goals yesterday, because, I mean, scoring 11 in a week's pretty impressive, to be fair.
Well, I think your aggregate scores, what is it, 11-1, the 2 games that you've seen?
Aye, and both against Highland teams as well.
Right, to be fair, somebody at the Rovers should be paying to bring you back to Scotland permanently. A tremendous record. Right, listen, let's not waste any time. Blair, as you can probably tell, I'm desperate to talk about this tactical choice from Dougie Imrie. I don't remember ever seeing a Rover side set out like this before. So you've got your flat back four. You've then got Jordan Docherty and Ross Matthews as a kind of narrow defensive midfield. Easton and Brown as a kind of narrow attacking midfield, and then Hamilton and McMullen as a sort of orthodox front two. What did you make of the 4-2-2-2, the magic rectangle?
Oh, it was magic, and it actually it suited everybody, literally everybody on the pitch. It suited them to a T. I spent the majority of the first hour probably going, that was good. What formation are we actually playing? No, like, I couldn't. And it wasn't until actually when Imrie said in his interview about the sort of box midfield, because I was like, it kind of feels like a 4-4-2. Because I think the way it worked so well was actually, Scott Brown was actually quite comfortable on the right-hand side of it. Because at times, actually, it did kind of almost turn into a 4-4-2, like Easton kind of pulled left and Scott Brown kind of pulled right. But it was the kind of fluidity of it all, and then just the genius of having Docherty at the base of it, who is like, right, J-Ro, are you going for a run? Yeah, that's fine, I'll cover you, mate, no worries. Bruni, are you going up? Yeah, that's fine, I'll slot in. And it was just seamless, absolutely seamless. And actually, Matthews didn't even have to do an awful lot of the covering, because Docherty just marshalled it. Whole game, just sat in that hole. We talked a lot about that yesterday. Like, I think it was funny, there was a few people, and we're skipping right ahead, but there was a few people kind of muttering, not muttering, but kind of going, oh, when Docherty got man of the match. But we were like, we would have probably won that game without Docherty playing in that position. I don't think we'd have won it 6-0. No. It was the freedom that he offered everybody. And we talked about it quite a lot with Sean Byrne, that actually sometimes playing a defensive midfielder is quite an attacking decision, because it's keeping that shape and keeping that solidity that actually allows your, at the time it was wing backs, but allows your full backs, allows your midfielders to bomb on, because they didn't have to worry about, am I covered, am I not? There's that one guy who'll just sit. An absolute stroke of genius for Imrie. Really, really impressed.
This is the thing, when you look at that formation on paper, the weakness is incredibly clear, which is that your fullbacks have got ostensibly no cover. There's nobody in front of them at all. So you can very easily see a world where both without the ball, your fullbacks are just getting targeted. And we've seen that in ostensibly more covered formations this season, particularly our right backs being targeted. And then with the ball, you're asking them to do a huge amount. But as you say, it looked purpose-built for that squad yesterday. Like, we've talked a lot about players who look like they're having to think too hard about what they're doing. Yeah. We've also, though, talked a lot about guys being moved around a lot. As we've just said, never seen that formation before. And there'll be guys in that park, I'm pretty sure, who won't have played in a box midfield before. And it just looked like they'd been doing it for months. Yeah. Scott, just how much credit does Dougie Imrie have to take for that?
Well, I think he's definitely got to take a decent amount of the credit. Obviously, he's probably I think he said it almost every game, he keeps putting it back onto the players and saying they've got to take the credit as well, because they're the ones that are the ones that are following his sort of instructions. But I think the main thing that I've liked about Dougie Imrie so far is the fact that he's openly said, look, I know this squad inside out. I've played against them. I know what to expect from them. So he's now seen them up close and personal day to day and seeing, right, what maybe the tiniest of details he didn't know from a day-to-day basis about everybody. So he now knows exactly what everybody can do. So he's then going to go, right, well, I'm not going to ask something that they can't do for a start. I'm just going to make everybody do something. And he's built a system so that we can perform right away, basically, because ultimately, I think there's probably loads of stuff he's wanted to do already, and he's going, I probably don't have the players to do it yet. So I do think that there's that aspect of it. You could see also, obviously, with the formation, whenever we lost the ball and Ross County did counter us, it seemed to be we were actually falling into almost like a 4-5-1 and asking Hamilton to just kind of do his own work, and then McMillan kind of would then tuck in and be sort of the widest on the left, and then Easton would then come in closer to the midfield as well. But I just thought everything just seemed to click. I think we were massively helped with the fact that Ross County's heads just fell instantly when we scored, but I do think we also have to take our own credit for the fact that we took it. We played out how Imrie probably wanted us to start the game, on the front foot, putting them under pressure and also getting the early goal. But I think it's also just the fact that we are making it a lot easier for ourselves than we were before, because I do think that Barry Robson, albeit I don't think it was all necessarily his fault. I know that everybody seems to now just be blaming Barry Robson because it's easy to do, but I don't think it was purely just down to him. I do think he had to take the blame for a lot of it, but the players were also, they needed to be culpable for it as well. But I think now it has been sort of just made so easy for them to follow a plan, and then Imrie's just went, I'll wait till January till I try to even make this any more complicated or a finished article to say.
I think it reflects particularly well on Dougie Imrie that he's now done this twice. So he's done it once for Morton and once for the Rovers. So they went up to Morton went up to Dingwall in November and won 3-0, and he did the same thing. Now that also reflects terribly on Tony Docherty for one thing.
Massively.
But to take two entirely different football teams and come away, 9-0 aggregate win, and we'll obviously, as we go through, touch upon County and where their problems lie to some extent. But you can't get away from that. That's two very impressive results, and a bit like the game where Robson beat Falkirk right at the beginning of his tenure. It was a very tactical victory, and obviously the players have to go and then carry that out. But as you say, Scott, Dougie Imrie's like, it's not about me, it's about the players. A lot of that is down to him. Like, there's just no getting away from that. That's not a strategy of like least resistance. It's not a default. No. He's not just going, we play 4-5-1, we'll just play 4-5-1 again this week. It's a real active choice to take up a deliberate strategy, and it's absolutely paid dividends. Well beyond, as you say, anything that I think anybody could have expected.
See, just on that point that Scott was making about not doing things too quickly, Dougie Imrie actually said that in his interview about, kind of drip feeding things in. And actually, I think he deserves a lot more credit, not just in terms of the tactical stuff, but it's the stuff we were talking about at the end of Robson's tenure that was clearly wrong. It's the relationships, and it's the guys willing to do things for you. So Imrie came in and had 4 days before that Alloa game, and we all spoke about it on that post-match, about you could see a difference. It wasn't, light years different, but there was centre-half splitting, there was movement in the midfield, there was a tendency to play the ball in, turn, if you can't get it back, that kind of, just a change of style, a change of kind of tact, if you like. For me, that's really encouraging when a manager comes in and within 4 days can make tweaks. And actually, this box midfield doesn't work if your centre halves stay really narrow and stay together, because is that thing like you're saying about, we're talking about cover. As the fullbacks bomb on because they've got no cover. You've got Paul Hanlon covering on the left. You've got he's gone now. O'Connor on the right hand side. Yeah, I got there eventually. Covering on the right, and that's not something that he's implemented this week. That's 3 weeks in the making, 4 weeks in the making. Since he's come in, and it's almost the really clever nature of the way he's done things is he's made little tweaks that have made what to the outside looks like an ostensibly large change actually quite piecemeal. Like it's little by little, but the end result was light years, absolutely light years away from what we were watching a month ago.
That's exactly it. It's just you could not envisage this football team doing that.
No.
As little as 4 weeks ago, you just wouldn't have thought, this team doesn't have a 6-0 in them. Basically against anybody. They just don't, not that they were terrible, not that they were, totally out of sorts, but just 6-0 wins in the Championship don't come around particularly often. And I think he can try and duck it all he wants. He has to take credit for that. There's just no getting away from it. To go straight into the first goal only comes 8 minutes in, but I think it's a really nice demonstration of just how well this worked and how perfectly designed it was to get at this County team. Because it starts off, it's just a long ball from the back. I can't remember if it's O'Connor or if it's Rowe. Just kind of launches the ball up. Paul McMillan is making a challenge. He's never going to win that header, but he's in the right place and he's doing enough that he's sort of engaging the back line, so they're not getting any peace. And when the ball pops back to Scott Brown, he's in space because he's playing as, a an attacking midfielder. Like he's really quite far forward. And it's something that we've said, or I've said anyway, I'll not put words in everybody else's mouth, that I've said I don't particularly like him there. I don't think he does as well. But I think the fact that there was the two of them, the defence and the midfield for the opposition don't know where to be. Because you're almost forcing them to bring 6 guys behind the line to try and actually cover it. So when Brown picks that ball up, he's got options. He's got Easton to his left, he's got Hamilton in front of him, and he's got McMillan in front of him. So he's got 3 options, and he takes the easiest one, which is just to nick the ball into McMillan, who's in the channel by that point. He puts a cross in. It's brilliant from Jack Hamilton.
Really good.
We're going to talk about Jack Hamilton a lot. I know that already. And as much as anything, just to keep the ball alive. Like he's never going to be able to get like a solid effort on target. But he beats Connor Randall, all ends up. Connor Randall's as well, though, being there in terms of actually getting contact on the ball. He gets it down. I think the defence may have questions to answer on this. But ultimately, in a recurring theme over this game, Scott Brown is charging in where county players are ambling around in their own box. And he just charges onto it and kicks it in the goal and doesn't think about it twice. And as I say, I just think so much of that is as a result of the way that the Rovers set up and the... I don't know that there's really many other games that we've had this season where Scott Brown would have been in that position to finish it, even if everything else had all come the same. Blair, just give me your thoughts on that goal in general, and then more specifically, just a word on County's defending and what you make of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a phrase I'm going to use a lot tonight, is wanting it more. And I think, like, I don't ever want to come off the back of a 6-0 and be in any way, shape or form negative. But I do feel like it's a little bit like after kind of Tuesday night where I'm like, it was really good, but it was Hamilton's kids. Like, you've got to temper your kind of your expectations off the back of it. And then we go out and we play County, and they were just so inept. Like, loads of talent throughout that squad. But I actually think Docherty's interview after it, he hits the nail on the head. It was just a total lack of desire. Like, Scott Brown should, I'll be honest, Scott Brown should not have won that ball. There's 2 defenders there who should have got to that ball before him. It's funny because obviously we're the far end, and I turn to my mate and I'm like, did he get to that first? Or has the defender... I actually thought the defender had cannoned it off him, and it was effectively like a deflection off of Scott Brown that's gone in as he kind of ran off. I couldn't get my head around how he got there in the time that the defence had. Because, I mean, Hamilton is a very good header, but it's a good header because he takes all the pace out of it. I mean, that ball almost drops dead on the spot. Like, it's barely moving. And there's 2 defenders there, and Scott Brown gets in before the 2 of them. Absolutely brutal. But it's back to the... Remember Scott Brown when he wasn't playing centre-half in the Ian Murray season? That's the Scott Brown that was popping up in the box. You know, the game at Partick and stuff. Like, there was times when he did that, and he's been so far away from that this season because he's played everywhere else. I just don't... Like, as great as that goal is, and it is really good, it's really well worked, but there's a wee bit of me going, does any other team in the league concede that goal in the Championship? I'm not entirely sure they do. So then you go, well, credit where it's due. You can only play who's in front of you, and you've got to take the chances that come to you when they come to you. But it didn't feel like we carved them open, if that makes sense. It was just so simple, so basic. Like you say, take the easy option, play the pass, get the cross in, header the ball down, get there first. Baffling, really baffling.
One of these where, so for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks now, County support have been going tonto about Declan Gallagher keeping his place in the team.
Yeah.
And they finally dropped him yesterday, and he was replaced by this boy Dylan Smith, who I think has come through their youth system. I could be wrong on that.
No, it
but
was
certainly he's the one that they've been. Oh, was it? It was Dylan Smith already in the team
the last
for that?
few weeks.
Because he's the one who's sleeping for that, where he's just watching it happen. But actually, that's quite good. That then ties into my next point, which is I think Iacovitis one's even worse later on, which we'll come around to. Because that, I think, most teams will go a month and not concede a goal as bad as that, where you're thinking, if somebody just tries a little bit harder, you'll keep that out. And I don't think that's even the worst one in this game. And it's a thing like that, he didn't want it enough, or he just wanted it more than the other. I don't really like very often. I find sometimes it's just kind of quite lazy, kind of
totally
just. It's an easy thing to say when someone has done better than someone else. It's categorically the case for at least a couple of those goals.
At least a couple,
Scott, anything you want to add on that first goal?
First, I think if at any point any of us mention anything about Ross County defending, I think there was none. So there shouldn't be any Ross County defending said in the whole game, because it was just, like, as Blair's touched on it, genuinely, like, especially when it got to 4 and 5 later in the game, it just felt like it was like a Challenge Cup game against a team that was either for the league below or a team that are playing like a sort of reserve team. That's what it felt like as the game was going on. And you kept on having to, like, even before the game, I'm looking at the team lineup and going, that front three, Hale, White and Henderson, I'm going, we'll do well to keep them. If we keep a clean sheet today, we'll have done well. And then after watching the first 15 minutes, I was going, God, they've completely just gone. Like, there was just nothing about them at all that made me think that Tony Docherty was even safe in his job after yesterday. But yeah, in terms of Scott Brown's goal, I think Blair's right. I was also shocked that Scott Brown even got to the ball, because at first, when I think I said to the guy who sat next to me, I went, oh, Hamilton's knocked it down to Nabdy. And as soon as I had finished saying that, Bruce ran onto it and slotted it away, and I was like, how the hell's he got there? But then when you watch the highlights, he just bursts a gut to get there. And yeah, it is literally desire that gets him there, just that sort of step ahead of any of the county defenders. And yet he had to go probably double the distance that any of them had to move after the Hamilton header. But yeah, I think it's good for it's been a really good week for Scott Brown, actually, because he's been one that's, to say he's came in for a bit of criticism, and there has been a few bits and pieces online. Well, we've signed him for Peterhead, and
yeah.
Was this his third season now that he's been with us, or his fourth?
Yes.
He's been here long enough and been in the team basically. Anytime he's been fit, he's basically been in the team, and he's been our captain for a lot of it as well. To say that he's came for like League 1, League 2 football is just nonsense. But I think also he probably didn't help himself when they brought out that article, him saying, "Oh, I think the fans need to be a bit more patient with us" and stuff like that. But at the same time, he's actually answered in the best fashion in terms of just go out and score goals and win games, and then you didn't need to worry about that sort of stuff. So I'm really happy for him to have scored in both them games this week, and to kind of just be back in form again, because he was in that sort of more attacking role yesterday, and it just suited him far better than it has done being deeper this season.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I would have said Scott Brown certainly is up there in terms of the players who look like they've really benefited from the change in management. And until yesterday, I would have said it's because he'd almost been reverted into a slightly deeper role rather than being asked to play further up. But he was further up again, and he was great. He was excellent, really, again. And again, it speaks to the kind of wisdom of the choice that he didn't look like he was doing a job that he was unsuited to. He didn't look like he was deputising. He was happy to do that, and it went for, as we said, for everybody. Second goal
because he's not playing.
Yeah,
I was just going to say really quickly. He's not. The difference though is he's not playing as a 10, so he's not got one person in front of him, and he's expected to do the really attacking bit. It's like it's the box-to-box bit without having to do quite as much of the defensive bit and not actually having to be the sole responsibility for the attacking bit. It's like chip in where you can, help out where you can, get back and help out at the back when you need to. But it is actually almost playing exactly to his strengths.
Yeah.
It's the energy and the running that he brings to the game.
Do you not think
That's
it also
exactly, basically...
Do you not think it also seems to be the case? Like, I've always thought that Scott Brown plays better when he's got Sean Byrne on the park next to him, and we put Docherty in there, and I think that helps the fact that you've got Matthews and Brown. I know that Brown was playing a bit more advanced yesterday, but even when it's been a midfield 2 or a midfield 3, and you've got Matthews and Brown in there, it's always 10 times better when you've got Byrne in the middle of them. And so you've put Docherty basically in the middle, and that's basically Brown's license to then just go and do what he needs to go and do.
I think it's, and I'm going to say this a dozen times today, I think it's a real benefit of that system. Because, again, we've talked a lot about, if you've got like a 3-man midfield, ideally, you've got one guy whose job is to be kind of destructive, one guy whose job is really to drive you on, and then one guy whose job is to be kind of creative. And at times we've had 2 of them, at times we've not. But actually, if you just play a 4-man midfield, you've got an extra body in there anyway. And so that's, you're taking degrees of responsibility off of everybody's plate. And to your point there, Blair, Scott Brown in that system, he almost only does really have one kind of primary job, and it's to just drive on.
Mm-hmm.
Because when he does, if he carries a team forward 20 yards, 30 yards, wherever he gets to when he's sort of slowed down or he needs to play a pass, he's still got 2 players directly in front of him and Easton on the scene beside him.
Yeah.
So he doesn't have that same onus to... It's not like a game. We talk about playing a 4-2-3-1. You play Sam Stanton in the 10, like we did a season or 2 ago. He was doing a lot of the driving and then the next stage as well. And he kind of had to, because he had 2 wingers who were quite far away and he had a striker in front of him. But that was it. Whereas with this, you've just got guys nearby. You've just got players who are there. And if you slow down and wait long enough, you might even have an overlap from your fullback as well. And it brings out the best because it takes a lot of the onus away. It means he knows he can just drive on and with the confidence of, I'll probably have options when I get there.
I think it also takes one, like if I was to be really critical of Scott Brown, which I'm not inclined to do at all, the one part of his game I think he's lacking in as a midfielder is the quarterback bit. It's the taking the ball off the centre half and finding that cut and pass or driving that play forward. It's the one bit of the game that's, he can do it. It's not his strength. And actually, they just took that off him yesterday. Like, didn't worry about it. Jordan will do that job. Like away and do the rest of the job. And he's really good at that. He's really good at driving and bringing energy, and he's also really good at the destroyer bit and shutting people down and putting the tackle in and making the foul when he has to. The tactical stuff. Like it just, like you say, it just suits. And it'll be really interesting. I know we'll probably have to talk about it midweek, but I'm not sure we can do that against Partick. A really different team with a lot of width. So it's almost like back to the drawing board and like, I'm really intrigued. What's the plan, Dougie? What are we going to do with it? What are we going to do for the white men?
I don't think it really works if you've got a team that's got like wingers and fullbacks.
Totally.
And that's it. County just don't. Just don't.
They've just got Henderson.
Exactly. I was going to say they had Henderson as a winger, and at times they're a 4 at the back, at times they're a 3, but they don't really have it. Ryan Duncan was there, who used to be a winger at one point, doesn't seem to do that anymore. And so there was never any question of, they're going to send 2 guys at the same time and go and hunt Stevenson or go and hunt J. Rowe, which Thistle absolutely would do. In fact, I think if you went into a game like we did yesterday, I actually think someone like Mark Wilson very, very quickly would put Chalmers and Fitzpatrick onto the same wing.
Yeah.
Even for 5 minutes. And just to force you to think again, basically. Because I see that's the weakness in that system, is if the other team are happy to go wide, but County just weren't and didn't. We'll go on to the second goal, though. So this is the penalty, Dylan Easton's penalty. Paul McMullen is clipped by Scott Fraser as he's sort of heading away from goal, really. He's kind of running across the centre of the box. Scott, any question about the decision on this one?
Well, at the time, when I was sat in the stand, obviously, we're the far end, I thought it was clear as day that he'd been clipped. And then watching the highlights back this morning, I actually went, it's actually quite soft. I didn't think that there was much contact at all. But I think there was enough to make it a penalty. I think also McMullen's kind of scurrying along quite quickly beside him. So any sort of touch, it's going to probably make him fall over. And then it just looks like a penalty straight away. And I think it's Matthew McDermott that was the referee yesterday. He was right in front of it, so he couldn't miss it. And yeah, he decided it was a penalty. I do think at the time that I did think it was a stonewaller, but I think less of that now after watching it back. But yeah, I mean we'll probably go into it as we go through this podcast, but I genuinely thought that was just the start of what was arguably Paul McMullen's best game in a Rovers jersey.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, again, definitely we'll keep on talking about him. Blair, on the decision, do you agree with Blair? Wait, you are Blair. Do you agree with Scott?
I've got to be honest, I'm just actually pulling it up on Wraith TV to watch it again because I've not seen anything that makes me think anything other than it's a stonewall penalty. And nah, Scott, I'm not having that. It's a stonewall penalty. Really, really good play. The build up to it actually completely epitomised everything we've talked about. The shape and the structure. It was like, right, let's drag the whole game left. Let's drag everybody over and let's leave Jero right over there on his own. And then let's look for that crossfield, quick diagonal ball. And it comes across, really, really good header for Jero. And then I think it's just the nature of the contact because he's running across him effectively. It's the contact from behind it. It's like clipping somebody's heel effectively. You don't need a lot of contact. Do you know what I mean? He's not bodied him out the way or put in a tackle kind of thing. He's just clipped him. But nah, for me, that's a stonewall.
Because again, actually, I think that's naive defending. Because I think if he's basically touch tight, see if he is like body to body with Paul McMullen, and even if he puts him down, if Paul McMullen goes down, I don't think you get a penalty for that. Yeah. I think the referee looks at that and goes, "Okay, you were just running together." But it's because he's almost kind of leaning back a little bit that he clips him with his feet, and it's as you say, it's clipping his heels. It's never going to take an awful lot for him to go down. And sometimes I think you're better to trust your kind of live view. And sometimes it's deceptive, particularly at the far end. But I was the same as you, Scott. Live, I was just like, that's completely a penalty. That is just absolutely said his heels clipped. But you're right, Blair, what you say about the kind of build-up as well. Because it's a big diagonal that goes, and it's Lewis Stevenson. The Lewis Stevenson, I don't think, did anything that was kind of headline grabbing yesterday. But again, as with pretty much everybody, we won 6-0. This isn't a controversial thing to say. I thought he was brilliant. And again, he and J. Rowe, who we will talk about a lot more, but they are being asked to do so much in that system. It totally relies on your fullbacks playing really well. And it relies on them being brave. Because, again, as we've talked about, when you set that out, particularly if you stick it up on a whiteboard, your fullbacks are both going to go, right, we're going to be busy then. So we're just getting no real kind of protection unless somebody drops out of midfield to come and help us. So you might think, as a result, they're quite conservative. But when you see that big diagonal at the start of that move, Stevenson is herring to get to it, 40 yards from their goal by the time he gets there. And then, albeit he lays it off to Easton first to actually play the big switch. But effectively, that move goes from fullback to fullback in the attacking third, which is, I guess, just testament to these guys who are there. and it creates that chance. And it's actually we'll be here all night if we go through it in any great detail, but the other chances that the Rovers get between the second and third goals are very similar. It's the movement of the players who are there that really makes it. And I tell you, the other one who deserves a bit of credit for this as well is Dylan Easton, because he's quite disciplined in that positional sense. It would be very easy for him in that system to drift out to the left-hand side constantly, because there's a huge amount of space there that he could always move into, and he only did it a couple of times. The rest of the time he was staying in the middle where he's obviously been asked to be, which, as I say, I think he deserves credit for, as well as getting credit for finishing the penalty. But there's not much you can say about that. It's a good penalty.
Water sweat.
Exactly. Pretty much the only thing I've got to say about Ross County in any kind of positive sense for this. Jordan White hits the bar kind of midway through that first half. Blair, if that goes in, if that's a couple inches lower and Josh Ray can't get to it, how much do you think that changes the game?
I think most weeks it totally changes the game. I think the unknown in all of this is, well, one, we've still not seen, we've seen the Rovers collapse a lot. I mean, I was laughing with the boy in front of me, even at 4-0 up, I was like, nah, been here before. It is not over yet. Definitely seen us collapse, but not seen how we'll react to something like that under Dougie Imrie. So that's a big unknown. The other big unknown is Ross County and just how flat they looked, and whether or not that goal would have been enough to G them up, to get them going. It may well have done, because, I mean, the one thing you can't take away is they've got talent across that park. Like, to watch that game, it's like Scott said, it didn't look like you were playing against a team with a budget and the players that we were playing against. It looked like a bunch of reserves. Like, it really did not flatter anybody by any stretch. So, honestly, it's a bit of a cop-out, but I've honestly no idea, because I think genuinely most weeks it would have a massive impact. I mean, at 2-1, you go, right, game on. Like, it's not even half-time yet. Like, we're right back in this. And they carry threat. Like, they do. They absolutely carry threat. So it may well have had a huge impact, but honestly, at this point, no clue, because I'm really intrigued to see how we cope with it under Imrie, because everything just feels calm, and he's not calm on the sideline. Like, he's like 10 to the dozen. He's like the Duracell bunny over there. But on the pitch, everything just feels really calm. So I hope we don't ever find out. I hope we just never concede ever again. I'd be quite happy with that. But I'm sure we will find out eventually.
That really was why I was asking, because it's exactly that. That was what I was thinking as well. I was like, yeah, most weeks that would change the game, but it seemed like, County just seemed so poor.
Yeah.
That, like, almost irretrievably poor. Like, you could have scored a goal and it still wouldn't have helped you, kind of idea.
Yeah. It was like watching us. It was like watching us under Robson. Shell the ball long to the big guy and hope you pick up something off the back of it. And then when it doesn't work and it comes back at you, shell the ball back again and hope that someone comes off of it.
And I mean, Ronan Hale, possibly still, second best striker division, maybe?
Easily,
like,
yeah.
It's unbelievable that a team with a player of his quality is as bad as they are. But there's only so much you can do. And I mean, certainly you wouldn't have guessed that on yesterday's performances.
No.
Be interested to see what happens to him in January, because they could be a real bother. Let's get to the goal of the day. I think it's safe to say, at least as far as I'm concerned. 3-0, J. Rowe. What a week he's having, by the way. With a thunderous half volley from 25 yards. So we've talked a lot this season about confidence, and particularly for kind of certain players. But Scott, when J. Rowe chests this ball down, do you think there was ever a second thought in his head other than putting his laces through it?
No, I think there was two players, if that had dropped it, and they were just shooting, and it was J-Ro or Scott Brown. And that the two of them have just had the best weeks they could have asked for in terms of needing sort of a confidence booster and also just to win I suppose the fan base back over, because J Rowe, I mean, he was kind of under Barry Robson anyway, just dwindling away on the bench. It just week by week, everybody just kept not forgetting about him, but just everyone's like, nobody's clamouring for him to be even near the starting lineup. So I think for him, this week's just been huge in terms of, could this actually turn his season completely around? With the fact that Imrie's came in, he's then been given a shot in the challenge, because he could have easily done. I'm going to pick him out again here, but he could have easily done what Josh Gentle's done, which was hee-haw on Tuesday night, and then then he's got no excuse if he's on the bench again. And yet we were still saying he's going to score a hat-trick and not even be in the starting 11 on Saturday. So when we did see him in the starting lineup, instantly I thought, oh, so that means that we're going to be playing him sort of in Josh Mullen's role as like the right mid sort of. And I thought, well, that's actually fine, because him and Docherty can just keep rotating and who goes, who sits, all that sort of stuff. But then obviously that's not how it transpired at all, and he was actually playing as right back. And again, the one thing that I was a wee bit worried with J-Ro going into the game as well was the fact that he's no the tallest of boys. Yes, he's decent in the air, as we've seen, in terms of attacking the ball. I was worried that Jordan White might have been the guy that was going to peel off and go out to him, and they were going to maybe shell balls over to him. Didn't really transpire out. I think there was once where there was a bit of misunderstanding in the first half between O'Connor and Rowe, and the two of them kind of were at each other just for 5 seconds, and then Rowe just went over and said, look, high five, and just walked off. But other than that, they seem to patrol it pretty well. But in terms of his goal, I mean, he's already shown midweek he can strike a ball and he knows where the back of the net is. So it doesn't surprise me too much that he's got a strike of that quality and that power. But fair play for pulling it off. And I mean, there's just no chance for any keeper in the division to be stopping that. That was just in the back of the net as soon as it left his foot. So as I say, just over the moon that he's actually coming back into form, and now can you even think about dropping him now after these last two performances?
Well, this is it. I mean, Blair, even setting the goal aside, just for the general performance there from J-Ro, I suppose it's two questions. Was this much more looks like the player that we thought we were getting, and is he more than justified his inclusion with his performance yesterday?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, midweek I said there was folk clambering about, scoring a hat-trick, put him up front and all this stuff. I'm like, it's that thing of you've got to, yeah, you were one of them. But I'm like, you've got to temper it. Do you know what I mean?
It was easy to caveat that midweek, definitely.
Totally. And I kept saying that, like, yeah, he's got 5 goals for us, but 2 of them are away to Elgin and 3 of them are at home to Hamilton's under 18s. Like, I don't think we're learning an awful lot about the boy. And I've probably been critical, actually, is probably the best way to put it. But I'll be honest with you, it's more a frustration than anything, because you can see all the attributes that the guy's got, all the talent that he's got, the touch that he's got, the ability to run with the ball, the strike he's got, the ability in the air. And I keep saying it and I keep going back to it. To be as good as he is in the air, all the characteristics you have to have are all the characteristics he has not been showing, like when he's been given these chances to come in. And I said midweek, like if all that game did was give him the confidence to kick on, then it's got to be a good thing. And I thought he was brilliant on Saturday. I thought he was really, really good. I thought he did the job that was asked of him to a T. He provided the aerial threat. There was a clear kind of, it's actually almost what Barry Robson tried to do a few times with him, which is drag the play left, diagonal across. He's not just headering a ball. He headers the ball with purpose. Like, the ball goes to where it needs to go. And I thought he executed that really well. I think the only question mark I still have over him, and it's not any fault of his at this point because he didn't have to do it. It's just the defensive side. Like, it's whether or not, like I say, going into a game against Partick, for example, where they've got probably the best two wingers in the league, whether or not he is the man to do that job on next Saturday, I mean, that's what I'll wait and see, I suppose. But I said it in the group chat, he looked every bit on Saturday the player that we thought we were getting when we watched all those clips of him scoring those goals last season and doing all the things that he was doing in the highlight reel before he came in. I just thought it was a really, really solid performance from him, really good. And a great goal, a great goal.
I thought it was absolutely brilliant. I've obviously been one of his kind of bigger fans up till now, and I think like in any other week, that's a man of the match performance. And I mean, honestly, he might not be in the top three, but like, that's not really his fault. But I'm not over it. Like I said, with Stevenson, your fullbacks are not being asked to do so much there just to keep an even keel. And I thought they both went over and above. But when one of them bangs one in for 25 yards, then absolutely he's going to get the wee bit extra kind of plaudits. Jumping into the second half, 5 minutes after half time, Ross County had made some changes that seemed ineffective at best and included taking off Jay Henderson, who looked like the one guy who might actually, even just take the pressure off him. So, what was happening there, I really don't know. But for the goal itself, again, it's actually very similar to the first one. More so than I'd realised at the time, in the sense that it's a long ball that goes up. County's defence can only sort of half clear it into the kind of no man's land of the midfield, but that's exactly where Scott Brown is stationed. And this one, he doesn't even need to take a touch. He just knocks the ball down for Jack Hamilton, who cuts a perfect pass into the path of the definitely onside Paul McMullen. And he, at the time, seeing it live, I thought he'd almost taken, he was almost like too kind of lackadaisical with it.
Yeah.
Because he just kind of takes a touch or two and then just rolls the ball across the box. It's like you could have, angled in and then really driven that, and he just rolls it across the box. Perfectly weighted for Dylan Easton. It's absolutely on a plate for him. And it's a really nice kind of left-footed finish beyond the goalkeeper. Scott, let's take this opportunity to talk about Paul McMullen. So, as we've said, he is the one who puts the cross in for the first. He wins the penalty for the second one. Can't remember if he's involved in the third at any point. Probably not, seeing as it's J. Rowe ripping it in from 25 yards. But he then puts this one on a plate. Also very heavily involved in the fifth that we'll get to as well. Just how impressed were you with Paul McMullen yesterday, and kind of similar to what was touched on with Scott Brown and J. Rowe? Is this a bit of a redemption arc for Paul McMullen under Dougie Imrie?
I think it definitely seems to be the case because, at the start of the season, I thought McMullen was doing enough in terms of his work rate off the ball and sort of harrying defenders and really being involved in sort of 1-2s with Dylan Easton, because there was a few games at the start of the season we were actually playing without a striker, and it was Easton and McMullen up front, and the two of them actually for a couple of games were doing all right, and then it just seemed to kind of go off the boil after that. And then McMullen actually started to lose his place in the team. He probably did, to be fair, need taking out for a wee while, because he was sort of just not being as effective as he had been the first few games in the season. But then, this performance is exactly the Paul McMullen I was hoping we would get. This is the sort of guy I remember at Dundee and Dundee United, and the sort of the guy that just doesn't stop running. He's constantly sort of, when he's driving at players and just even being a pain in the ass when he's no right to win headers in the air, but he's just throwing himself up anyway, just to kind of, if anything, put the other boy off. And then half the time it's a case of the defender sort of skews his header or whatever, and he just ends up with it. So, like, and that's what it ended up doing yesterday. And I thought, I was glad that he eventually did get his assist, because it was the least he deserved yesterday. If anything, he deserved a goal, but he didn't get that chance, sadly. But I just hope that this is the sort of performance that kind of just sparks that life back in him again, just like we've said about J. Rowe and Scott Brown as well. Because I do think there is a player in there. I still think that he's one of the worst shooters of a ball that I've ever seen for the Rovers. But if he keeps playing like he did yesterday, I'll take that rather than him being any good at shooting. But I just think it was a much needed performance to him, and I know that we'll probably discuss it at the end, but you could have picked any probably player yesterday, but I kind of narrowed it down to 3 for man of the match, and he was certainly one of the 3 for me.
Yeah, well, definitely we'll come back to that, because there's a long list of contenders there. Blair, give me your thoughts on the goal and on Paul McMullen at large, please.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I don't have a huge amount to add to what Scott said there. I think it's just really reassuring to see a player whose body language hasn't looked great for a wee while now. I felt like he looked. Sometimes a player's playing like they're low in confidence, and some players look low in confidence. And for me, he looked low in confidence. So actually seeing him with a bit of spring in his step again, I've been kind of debating for a while now about, is he better out wide? I'm not sure he is anymore. I think he's maybe that player that we remember from a few years ago. I actually think, again, that system yesterday suited him to a T. It's going to do us a favour and just run really fast at everybody all the time. And anytime anybody's got the ball, just run right at them. Like, don't even run near them. Run directly at them. Make eye contact the entire time. And he just did it. He harassed right for kickoff. The kickoff, literally, they crapped themselves straight from the start of the game, because he just barreled down at the goalie. And it's really good to see a really well worked goal. And I was the same as you, when he kind of took a touch and he slowed down. It was actually really clever, because I think he knew that Easton was there, but Easton needed just that little second or two to get into the position he needed to be in. And then the pass was just sublime. Just so, and it's such an underrated thing. I love when you see those kind of curved kind of passes where the player doesn't even have to break stride. Like Kevin De Bruyne has made an absolute career out of it. Just the ability to roll the ball into feet and not have to break stride. It's just a really good goal. And weirdly, for it not being the best goal of the day, probably one of my favourites of the 6, just because of the nature of how it worked and how it broke down, and us pouncing on a mistake. Like, we don't pounce on mistakes. It was great.
It's as you say, it's Easton doesn't have to break stride. It's one of these where he almost doesn't need to think.
No.
Like, McMullen is forcing him into a single course of action.
Yep.
There's none of this like, oh, am I going to go round the keeper? Am I going to chip the keeper? No, you're just going to have to place this first time, because that's the weight that's on the ball. And it is because as he was kind of shaping up to play it, I was like, no, you're going to it. As it just absolutely
Beautiful.
Perfect. Yet more evidence that nobody should ever listen to me under any circumstances, ever, really. Just that you're saying there about using him as a forward, but not really as a forward. Again, as you can probably tell, I was doing a bit of reading earlier on about the kind of evolution of this formation and all this kind of stuff. And even going back to, I said, his wife Flavio Costa in the 50s at Flamengo in Brazil. And that's basically, you play a centre forward and a guy who is just a pest. Like, That's by design. That's how you set up this thing. Your front two, it's a guy who stays in the middle and occupies the defence, and another guy who is just everywhere all the time. And so when the opposition have got the ball, he goes to one of the two centre halves. But when you've got the ball, he is just available to do it. And I thought, again, Paul McMullen was absolutely perfect for that yesterday. On to the fifth goal, because this again starts with Paul McMullen. So by this point, the Rovers made some substitutions. I'll not pick through them individually. We can come back to them as a group.
Sorry, we need to take a second. On to the fifth goal.
Yeah.
Never thought we would be here.
I'm on to page 2 of my notes. Doesn't happen very often because it's generally just single lines of Les, how should we have defended this cross? Times 4. You're still 13 minutes on the clock, left on the clock at this point as well. But it's Paul McMullen who, I think it's off a throw-in, I think, and then he dinks a lovely little ball over the top for Josh Mullen to run in. His shot it's kind of partially blocked by Trevor Carson, and then talk about who wants it more. Alex Yakovic. Let's go with that. That's the one. Thank you, Scott. Wants a fortnight to clear this.
Yeah.
Like, on his own goal line, what have you got to think about? Like, just get rid of that ball. And he's absolutely pounced on by Paul Niso, who effectively tackles the ball into the net, because that's what it takes. And this is the one, obviously, you will not see a better example of he wants it more. That's just what that is. That is a defender who is not that arsed about doing his job, and an attacker who is absolutely hell-bent on that ball in the back of the net. Scott, I think we're also kind of duty-bound to go a little bit Barry Davies and just look at his face with this one. Because Paul Niso, I mean, how delighted were you just to see how much that goal meant to Paul Niso, Scott?
Yeah, I think you could see straight away as he realised that like it cannoned off and gone into the back of the net, that just we obviously found out last week that he had basically played in Perth against St Johnstone off the back of driving down to a funeral and come straight back up to make sure that he was available. Again, brilliant that he went to that length to do that, because, I mean, at the end of the day, he's a young lad on loan for Rangers. We've seen plenty of young lads on loan for Rangers that would certainly not have done that. So that was fair play to him last week. But then it's almost a reward for that sort of thing, that he gets that sort of... I mean, he's the one that puts himself in the position by driving, thinking that there's even a chance that he's going to get to the ball at the same time or even before the defender. So, just delighted for him, because he has shown sort of signs that he's a decent player at this level, but there's just little bits and pieces, as a young sort of player is, that he probably needs to sharpen up. But then Dougie Imrie's openly said that he's seen him playing for Rangers B team and in the sort of youth teams as well. So it's like he knows and is probably asking him for things again that Paul Niso's good at and that he knows what to do. So, yeah, delighted for it. And you could tell, like, before the players then kind of climbed on top of him, you could tell he was down on his knees, and you could probably tell he had that sort of few seconds to himself where it was, he'd probably thinking of someone that had passed away. It was probably that moment for him that was probably for them, and the sort of week that he's had. So fair play to him. And again, and then going back, that was just another moment of class for Paul McMullen. The dink over to Josh Mullen as well, because it was a perfect way. I mean, it could easily, with how slick the surface was because of the rain yesterday, he could easily overhit that and it would have skidded on. But he's just managed to sort of get it high enough that it's more of a bounce than sort of skidding on. And, I mean, Mullen, he's putting a sort of hard enough shot to allow a sort of rebound come out. And then, yeah, as she said as well, Yakovic, I think maybe if the game is like 0-0 or they're down by 1, he maybe is more alert and deals with it. But by that time, he's 4-0 and probably thinking it's going to get worse, because it could have easily before then gotten worse anyway. So I think it was just, it basically summed up their day, that goal.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I'm almost certain this is the first time this season where I have been skipping over Rovers attacking highlights when putting together a podcast like this. Because we got 6 goals and other chances beyond that. Blair, you mentioned already that as an entire support, we have a sort of Hamilton-induced 4-0 PTSD. Was it at this point that your bum cheeks unclenched?
Yes, it was exactly this moment, actually, I have to say. And actually, the whole build-up of it, you realise just how... And we were really good, and I think it's really easy to fall into the trap of... And it's the thing everybody asks you, when you win 6-0, were you really good or were they really bad? It genuinely was both. Like, they were so bad, but we were really good. And I was just so happy to see him score that goal. I love when you get a lone player who seems to really connect with his teammates. And when you see that goal and you see the celebration, and then you see Scott Brown celebrating with him after the game, like, you can just see how much it meant to every one of them that he's got that goal, like, because he's had obviously a pretty tough couple of weeks, but has really kind of kicked on a little bit right at the beginning of his career. And no matter where he ends up playing, no matter where he ends up going, whether he stays with us, goes back to Rangers, moves on, wherever, his first ever professional goal will be that goal. And it'll be something that stays with him. And you could just see it on his face. He was absolutely made up. And as a football fan, if you can't be happy about that, you're definitely in the wrong game. It was glorious.
You know what? It reminded
100%.
me of slightly, not the goal itself, but just the feeling and his reaction and the team's
I know
reaction.
exactly what you're going to say.
Cody David.
Richard Chin.
All right, no.
I was going to say Cody
so
David.
Close.
It was Cody David last year. When I came back home for last year and Cody David scored that goal in the derby, that's what that moment reminded me of, because I kept hearing about, like, because we only see on a Saturday, but Cody David always just looked quite lazy and just, he didn't seem like he was really enjoying himself. And then you seen him score, and then the players just looked over the moon for him. And then he looked over the moon. And then again,
That's true.
it just looked the exact same for Niso yesterday, just how chuffed he was. And the players were straight over to him. And you could see actually Bruni and Easton coming back out the tunnel when he'd scored. And the two of them were really cheering him on and going for it and telling him to just, like, sort of soak it all in almost. They were telling him to keep looking back at the fans and stuff as well. So that's what that goal definitely reminded me of, was David's last season.
Blair, who were you thinking of there?
Richard Chin.
Oh, right, okay.
Just that moment of release when he scored that goal, and everybody, but actually at that point, I think everybody in the entire stadium was delighted for him, probably more so, but it was just, similar vibes.
Yeah. To be fair, not just Richard Chin's first goal. Richard Chin just coming off the bench was a bit like that yesterday as well.
It was,
which was great.
Richard Chin coming out to warm up at the beginning.
It was like John
standing
Fredrickson
ovation for a warm up. It was, It's funny.
Yeah,
it was when he came on, and I know I think he's already on the pitch at this point, isn't he?
I think he will be at this stage, aye.
His first touch. It was funny because I turned to my mate, just as he came on, I turned and I went, is this the point where we're going to have to remember that he's really young and he's really quite raw and he's got a lot of talent, but he's still quite raw? And then he took that first touch and it squirreled away from him, and I was like, oh, Ginny's back. Love it.
But it was even, I can't remember if it was his very first touch. It was one of his early touches where he kind of knocked the ball into the channel. And everyone was like, oh no, actually, that's staying in. That's quite good. He just kept going.
That's exactly what I was meaning, yeah.
He went and caught it. It was fine. But to be fair to him, we might as well just wrap up on Richard Chin while we're talking about him. The shot that he got away, which I think it was already at 6-0 by that point, that's not a million miles away. That, and about half a dozen of games we've had this season would have been our best chance. It's really good technique, like, because that, again, I think we talk about this relatively often. Players who are out injured for a while, some of them get better the longer they're out, and some of them get worse, and then they come back. But it looked like he hadn't been away very long. He came in there and just did that job that he's needing to do, and he's such a good option to have.
Yes.
Really, just makes the squad better if he's in it. Quite simply,
just pure energy.
And as you say, it helps as well that he's clearly just got that kind of personality that everybody's taken to really naturally. And we'll definitely be seeing more of him. But we've still got another goal to talk about. This one, 6-0. Jordan Docherty, who, well, honestly, we've actually not talked about very much at all, given his importance to the performance. But this one, 60 yards, I think, to be on the kind of short side. Just runs. 60-odd yards, unimpeded. About halfway through, Connor Randall decides he should probably chase him and then gives up pretty quickly. Gets to the edge of the box before he gets his shot away. It's kind of parried by Trevor Carson, and Jack Hamilton is there to react quickest and kind of sweep in the rebound. So let's just take the two kind of players involved in this one as much as the goal itself. So Scott, first of all, Jordan Docherty, obviously we've seen a lot of him at right back. We've not seen a huge amount in the midfield. But a lot of people have been kind of calling for it. How key was he to that overall kind of team performance yesterday?
Yeah, I think he just kind of did what he normally does at right back, but in the middle of the park, in terms of just quietly goes about doing a really good job. Like he doesn't like pull up trees in terms of how outstanding he is, but he's just oozes class constantly. Just the fact that he's always, I always think he just starts the game 8 out of 10 before he's even kicked the ball, because you know that you're just going to get that performance out of him all the time. And I was almost surprised when they said Jordan Docherty for man of the match yesterday, because I was like, he hasn't even scored. Because usually, like, the sponsors will go for somebody that's scored. I automatically thought it was going to be Easton just because he got 2 goals. Yeah. But fair enough, because at the end of the day, I don't think he's had enough man of the match awards where he probably should have had it. So at the same time, fair play to him for getting that. But it was just a superb run. And as you say, like, it doesn't look great. It actually looks like a goal that we've conceded plenty of times this season, with just running through our midfield. But so it was nice to actually see us scoring a goal like that for a change. But I think Docherty, we knew that he would be able to do that sort of role and be in that position when asked, because I'm pretty certain when he was in America, that was the role he actually played more of than he did in defence. He seemed to be sort of a defensive midfielder that would just sort of protect the back line and then be the one that would kind of break it up and give it to the better players, which is basically him filling in for Sean Byrne. And it looked as if somebody like Sean Byrne was in the middle of the park yesterday. So that was pleasing to see, that he was able to put in that level of performance in there, and that we were obviously came out successful with the result. And then in terms of Jack Hamilton, I think that sort of goal is exactly the sort of goal that you want your centre forward to be scoring. He's following in what he thinks might be a chance that comes out of it, and he's just the first one to the fact that Carson has spilled it right in front of him, and then he just rolls it into the back of the net. That, again, it's not a hard finish, but it's a goal that you want your... He should be arguably getting 10 of them a season. That's what you want for Jack Hamilton. But he's, unfortunately, until now, he's not been either in the position or being confident enough to be taking these sort of chances. I really hope... I know we said this when he scored his goal. Was it against Morton, the header that he scored? I know that in that game, everyone's like, right, I hope he gets the sort of confidence. But at the end of the day, this was by far his overall best game this season in terms of everything he done. And then the goal just topped it off.
That is exactly what I was just going to say there, is like Jack Hamilton. So I think basically at any point under any game or in any state of confidence or lack of, he scores that goal. Like that's, County have basically stopped playing by that point. But 2 points on it. One, I think it is absolutely, as you've just said, it really, that was the epitome of a performance that deserved a goal. But like you said with Paul McMullen, it was a shame he didn't get one. But for all the other work that Jack Hamilton did, it was so good. He deserved a goal at the end of it. And the other point I wanted to make just briefly, so he puts that in with his left foot. I think I'm right in saying 4 of the goals that we scored, players put the ball in with a bad foot. Brown is on his left foot. Easton's from open play is on his left foot. Niso, to be fair, is tackling the boy, but with his left foot. And Hamilton puts that one in with his left foot as well. Now, I don't know that you'd necessarily say that the Rovers have been guilty of, kind of trying to score the perfect goal at any point. I think that would be a bit far. But we have accused them of being a bit kind of shot shy and maybe just not quite taking enough chances. And there was no lack of that yesterday. They were certainly just having a go at stuff and not trying to be too fancy, if you're 8 yards out and the keeper's made a 6, you just kick that ball in the goal and then try and not fall over when you celebrate. Blair, what did you make of Jack Hamilton over the course of the afternoon?
Yeah, I agree with everything you have said, boys. I've got to be honest, it was the best we've seen out of him. But again, I think my defence of Jack Hamilton has always been that I don't think we use him properly. I don't think we've ever set out to use him properly. I don't think that is an excuse for some of the performances that he's put in, if I'm being honest, and some of the chances that he's missed and stuff. Like, I'm not advocating that he's completely hard done by. But yesterday, we asked him to do what he's good at, which is, be a presence, be physical, but kind of stay central. And like Scott's saying, he should be getting 10 of those a season and he's never in the position to get them. But it's because we're asking him to do a job elsewhere on the pitch and we're asking him to track back and link up the play with the midfield and to do all these things. And like, some players can do that. And I don't think it's a massive criticism to say that Jack Hamilton can't. He can't do all of it all the time. So it's a bit like Scott Brown. If you ask him to do every single part of being a central midfielder, you will dilute down what he's very, very good at. And actually, Jack Hamilton needs to be in the box and he needs to be getting chances. And this thing that's been kind of, is he a penalty box? I think he is. I think he's a penalty box striker. And I think we need to just use him as that and actually play to his strengths. And having somebody like Paul McMullen, who's doing not just your running, his running, but everybody else's running as well for them, like, it made a massive difference. I was delighted for him, not only to get the goal off the back of the performance, but to get that goal, that type of goal, that is almost like a, look, if you give me chances in here, I will score them. And we definitely need to do more of that. Yeah, really, really impressed.
I think a large part of that is also just putting players close enough to him, as well, so he's not having to do it all himself. Because I think to go right all the way back to the first goal, you probably, if you went back and spooled through the full match replays, you'd probably find 4 or 5 crosses into the box to Jack Hamilton where he has effectively kept the ball in play like he does for that first goal. Which, I mean, that's maybe slightly harsh to say that's all he does, but he keeps the ball alive. But there's not been anybody near it. And we've all just gone, he's done nothing with that. He's wasted that. He needs to try and get a header on target. But actually, if there's somebody running in, he doesn't have to get a header on target. He can actually just keep the ball alive is enough. And you get a goal out of it. And again, like we said with Scott Brown, he's got 3 guys close by when he needs to play a pass. Mm-hmm. Well, Jack Hamilton's got 3 guys close by to receive passes from and to create chances around. And even the one that Easton scores from open play, Hamilton's involved in the build-up. But previously, again, I think other games this season, it would be a case of, right, Jack, you can lay the ball off to Paul McMullen, but you are also going to have to be the guy to be in the middle to finish it. And so, yes, absolutely. I think the system really helped him like it did with the others. And every guy it helps, that effect compounds.
Yes.
Everybody's suddenly getting even better at then also helping their teammates out. But individually, I thought he was excellent. A lot of the stuff that, again, we've maybe been a wee bit critical of, little things, just like his first touch and the little kind of layoffs and maybe putting it just a wee bit behind somebody. There was none of that. I just thought he was really, really good.
Right. See, just to go back to the other half of your question, and it's like you say, it compounds. But see, when you go back to that, for me, what would be the single point of failure, the bit that effectively the foundation that this whole thing is built on, for me was Jordan Docherty. And I think I honestly, I kind of see why Scott's saying like he's good, but not like pulling up trees. I genuinely thought he was. I thought he was outstanding yesterday at just being where he needed to be, doing what he needed to do. And I think he's the reason that Jack Hamilton's got two boys near him. He's the reason that J. Rowe can go bombing on the right. He's the reason that all of it worked. Like, it's like linchpin, basically. That one single point of, if you don't get that bit right, I think the whole thing kind of crumbles on itself. So actually, yeah, as far as man of the match goes, he's again up there for me. Like, I thought he was, and it's amazing for me that he can step into the midfield and not look like a defender who's stepping into the midfield. He was really good on the ball, comfortable, composed. Like, I think we've got a real gem there, and it's getting back to the Jordan Docherty we had, kind of, because he did kind of dwindle a little bit under they all did, to be fair, the last sort of 6 or 7 weeks of Barry Robson's tenure, but definitely back to the player we've seen before.
Scott said a minute ago, and I agree entirely. It is like Docherty starts at 8 out of 10.
Okay.
And if he has a bad game, he maybe drops to 7. But that's it. That's his range, you know, and he gets better than that as well. I think the other players in that camp is one of the only ones we've not really mentioned is Paul Hanlon.
Yeah.
Just starts at that point, and we spent a lot of time last season talking about the fact that Paul Hanlon never wins man of the match. And like that was exactly the kind of game where I was the same as you, Scott. When they gave it to Jordan Docherty, I was like, yeah, that actually, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And it's exactly the kind of one that you don't generally get kind of in the ground. I think it's very easy to go with the kind of popular choice. The goal scorer. But let's seeing as we're on it, let's stick to the man of the match. So I think the only players we've not mentioned, by the way, are probably Josh Ray, didn't have much to do, and Ross Matthews, we've not mentioned, but I think that is, again, because of the nature of the performance, was just like, you don't have to be, you almost don't want the guy doing that job to stand out.
No.
Because if he's standing out, it's almost certainly because he's not doing his job. But as I say, in terms of man of the match, if you had to pick somebody, had to come down to a single player based on that 90 minutes, Scott, we'll start with you. Who are you going for?
I was a toss-up between Scott Brown and Paul McMullen myself, and you can pick either of them for me. I don't really care, because I thought they two were just ever so slightly above the rest of them. I think everybody was basically an 8 out of 10 minimum, and I think they two just were that little bit more. But again, if he then turned around and went, oh, well, I thought it was Jordan Docherty, or I thought it was Easton, or I thought it was Hamilton, I also couldn't really argue it, because I thought there was at least 6 guys could have been easily in the running to stand out for it.
Yeah, it's funny you said Brown there, and I had 4 names written down, and Brown wasn't one of them. And then you said Easton, I was like, oh, I've not got him either. So I've now got a list of 6 to pick from. Blair, where did you come down in that argument?
It's funny because you take everything that Scott just said and replace the 2 names with Docherty and McMullen. For me, I just thought they were. I mean, McMullen, just in terms of his contribution to the goals, he was involved. Like you say, I'm trying to kind of rack my brain back. I don't think the third. I don't think he was, but he was just a part of everything. Everything that was good, kind of, he was a part of. But I think that's just the nature of the game that he played. He was everywhere. He was involved in everything. I think I probably would land on Docherty, though.
Right, okay. Take everything you just said, but just flip the 2 names in the final sentence, because I agree with everything you said. And I think if you'd handed me a voting slip at full time, I'd have put down Paul McMullen's name. But you absolutely you can make an argument for genuinely half the team that was there. And I think, as you said, Scott, anybody who's not in that argument is still anyway, listen, you didn't win 6-0 and carry out the passengers, do you?
No, you didn't.
I mean, we kind of carried
the
fact that they did nothing.
I thought that was quite interesting,
saved
actually.
That overhead kick.
Yeah, the interview after the game for Tony Docherty, I thought he was. I genuinely think he actually got a lot right in terms of how inept it is. It's kind of his fault and his job to not be that inept, but I think he did nail it on the head with the desire, and it was his job. Yeah, that's right. But it was the bit about we had a similar number of shots. Yeah, but there's shots and there's shots. Like you had a similar number of balls that, had the goalkeeper not actually been there, would have gone in the net. But nah, I'm not having a similar number of shots as some kind of measure of anything.
It's reeks of penalty box entries to me.
Yeah, and XG.
Yeah. So I think 14 shots for the Rovers, 12 for County. Just the 6 that went in on the one side of that equation there.
Do you want to know something funny that I was pissing myself at? Because I also I was like, they've only done that for like the first half or something, and then I've just realised that they meant it for the match, but for some reason they must have just no added it up. You've just mentioned the shots there for Ross County, so for my app in terms of what I use if I'm looking at football scores is flash scores. They've got Ross County had 1 shot in the whole game. And I don't know if that's just showing how bad that Ross County were yesterday. That they went off. Well, they didn't do anything.
Start to deduct them at a certain point.
The boy that's in control of the flash scores app at Starts Park was too busy celebrating, I think. I think that's the problem. Every 2 minutes he had to jump about, eh?
Right, let's see. Well, I've got a couple of final points here, but a lot of this stuff we've actually covered as we've gone through. I mean, let's just briefly reflect on County for a second then. So, as we said, Tony Docherty was, as I think everybody expected yesterday, Tony Docherty was going to be sacked. You can't get beat 6-0 and keep your job, quite frankly, I think, in the vast majority of circumstances. I think had it been maybe 1-0, 2-0, he might have kind of clung on. They obviously, I think, wanted to get to January and give him that window. But, I mean, Blair, how much of that scoreline are you putting down to County's, ineptitude, I suppose?
I think the scoreline, you probably have to. I think any kind of level-headed, sensible Rovers fan is looking at that game yesterday and going, we were good, we were absolutely worth the win, but there's no other scenario in this league where we win that game 6-0. Like, we were good, but we were met by how poor they were, and how, like I say, how little effort they put in. I mean, the first goal, the Paul Niso goal, they just shouldn't happen. Like, there was ample opportunities to get rid of them. There were times where I felt a bit sorry for the goalie. He's quite a good keeper, I think, actually. To be fair, quite an experienced keeper.
Honestly,
the last goal, I think he absolutely shipped. But by that point, it didn't actually make any difference. I think it was a really weird save. He almost went to push it to his right, and it went left. It was bizarre. But yeah, I agree. I don't think he had a bad game at all. I think he got completely sold up the river by his team. And I think that it was just one of those games. It kind of, in a way, it kind of reminded me of the game we got beat by Queen's Park not long after Barry Robson had taken over, actually, the 4-0 game. It was in March, I think, back in the end of last season. And it was like every time they went forward, they scored. And you never felt like you were out the game, but it just never felt like you were going to do anything. Like, it just was one of those afternoons. It kind of felt a little bit like that. I thought they were really poor, and I've said it a couple of times, kind of jokingly, but it did remind me a little bit of the tactics we had under Robson. Just Jordan White. Jordan White is really good in the air. And actually, it was the only bit yesterday that really annoyed me. Scott mentioned the kind of the miscommunication between, it was Rowe and I can't remember which one of this was it, O'Connor, and it was that thing of, neither one of you is going to win that header against Jordan White. You're just not. So why would you both go? Like, let one go, challenge him, hopefully put him off enough that he can't get the header he wants on it, and then just kind of mop up the bit off the back of it. But that was their tactic, straight to him every time. And then conceding the goal that Doherty runs right through the midfield, just reminiscent of watching us concede goals. Like, I thought they were really, really poor. And you mentioned it already. I do not understand why they took Henderson off. If anything, the only way I could see them scoring yesterday was a set piece, because they've got that threat in the box. They've got that aerial threat. And he puts in an amazing ball. More than once, actually. There was a couple of corners he took that were just another level, like in terms of the delivery that he's putting into the box. And to take him off as early as they did, baffling. Absolutely baffling. So it kind of looked like a team that had given up the ghost. Like they clearly, I'll be honest, a wee bit like us under Robson in the last, that kind of last 2 to 3 weeks where you're going, this is starting to now look like the players are not interested in him anymore. Not so much about no playing or, I don't think we ever got that far. But there was a clear kind of, I don't think they're in his camp anymore. And it reeked of that from the very beginning yesterday.
It's funny you mentioned about Jordan White being really good in the air, because there was at one point I had to laugh during the first half. There was somebody, it's just one of these shouts that you do ken where it came from in the South Stand, but there was one of them came for a guy just going, you can't be letting that guy win balls in the air. I went, well, he's about 3 inches taller than anybody on the park, so he does. He's got a head start.
And is very good in the air.
Exactly. Yeah. I was just like...
famously good in the air. I wonder... So sorry, just your final point there, Blair, about, have the players kind of given up for the manager. I'm never quite... I didn't think the Rovers ever quite got to that point where it was like open revolt. It very much felt to me like absolutely his methods had stopped working and things had gotten to the point where they were never going to get better again. But yesterday I was like, oh no, this is a team who have... You talk about, has the manager lost the dressing room? Like, absolutely he has. The last couple of goals here, like, they're just not trying.
I think we were only a couple of weeks from that, though. Like,
probably, yeah.
When the board pulled the trigger on Robson, I don't think we were months away from seeing a performance like that.
The interesting thing for me now is how far away from like terminal decline are County. A little bit, it's like the opposite of when Falkirk came up last season. We're like, they'll start really well, because the team that wins the division always starts really well. Like, we've seen it with Arbroath as well. But it's like, you almost have to reach a sort of escape velocity. Like, you have to be good enough for long enough that you actually go, oh no, we're actually really good at this level as well. And then just keep on. And on Falkirk, obviously, they absolutely smashed it. That was absolutely what they did. But I think it can work the other way, where you get relegated and then you continue being so bad that it's like a nosedive you can't pull out of. And
Livy did it a few seasons ago, didn't they?
Well, it's happened a couple of times. Definitely has happened. But it might well be that in hindsight we look at it and go, they're already that point of no return has already happened. But you'd think the fact they've still got January to go, they will be getting a new manager. We've seen the impact a manager can have. I don't think it's gone yet, but they can't be far away because they look so bad. And Dougie Imrie in his interview says Ross County, they're a really good team on paper, and I don't think they are anymore. I think they were at the start of the season, and I think we've now had enough evidence that if you went to basically anybody in the top half of the league and said, you want to swap any of these guys in, you'd take Ronan Hale. Guys like Declan Gallagher, who at the start of the season, he would have had contract offers from half of this division, and possibly one or two from the division above. And now, I don't think anybody would go anywhere near him. And there's a lot of his teammates would be the same.
See, by the same token, though, if you're a manager and you're having to take over a team in that position, and you look at them and you go, right, what do I need? You're not looking at them and going, I need X, Y, or Z. Actually, I think they've got a big enough squad and enough talent in that squad to more than cut it in this league if they can improve morale and improve performances and stuff. Whereas, like, even Imrie coming into us, this is off the back of a 6-0 win, but you say, what do you need? He still needs a striker. Like, he needs somebody up there with Jack Hamilton so that he's not the only man there. And most of the teams in this league, you look at them and you go, they need a right back, or they need a left mid, or they need a. I don't think Ross County need anything. They just need somebody to kind of get them going.
Yeah, they have the luxury of, well, two luxuries, I suppose. They've already got too many players, which is a much better problem than not having enough players.
Exactly.
And the fact that the guy who owns them is worth whatever 9 figures or something. So actually, like, there's guys in that squad that you would forget are there. Like, Nicky Clark plays for Ross County.
Yeah.
Did you guys know that? I couldn't have sworn it to you until I double checked earlier on. Like,
it's mad.
Is
he injured? Or is he just not playing?
Came off injured.
I think he played. Played midweek and got injured, surprisingly. But, like, if he played for us, we would never stop talking about the fact that, oh God, Nicky Clark, and if we can get him back, it'd be good. But if we can't get him back, he's taking up a huge wage. Whereas at County, it's just like, honestly, they could just phone him and be like, Nicky, just didn't come back, pal. We'll keep paying you. Didn't worry about wasting money on petrol. And it would make no discernible difference. So it'll be interesting to see who does go in there and what they do, because it does feel, though, at this point that a lot of the guys that in the summer you're going, he's going to be really good, he's going to be the cornerstone of that team, that actually you might end up going in and going, I need somebody who does something you don't do. Like Ross Docherty is a good example. Ross Docherty is a really good player. I really like him. And I think to fix that county team, you need to just bump him. Like, you just have to go, sorry, mate, we are not dominating the ball. We are not on top of games. That's where you're really good. You need to just go away until we can actually start winning some games, and then maybe you can come back in. So, yeah, it will be interesting to see, but very much a case of Tony Docherty had to go. Like, there was no, they very much, like, you can sort of job along to January getting beat with that, like, we've got loads of money, we'll probably be able to fix this. You can't do it if you're getting beat 6-9. Like, that's just, you've crossed a Rubicon at
really
that point.
Interesting in terms of where they go next as well, because you also have to throw into the mix the fact that they are in the Highlands. It's not as attractive a proposition for a lot of managers. You chuck in the fact that they're now probably in a bit of a relegation battle. Do you know what I mean? Yes, you're probably going to get handsomely paid, but who's out there? Who's the next man in, kind of thing? Unless they try and do what we did and go to another championship club and take a manager from them. But I'm not even seeing any great candidates, to be fair, at this point.
Yeah, we talked about it with the Morton job. Like, it's a really tricky thing for Morton to do, because we were in this recruitment market for a manager and ultimately decided that the best possible option was Dougie Imrie. So now
it's so true.
They've got to recruit from that exact same market, but without the guy that we thought was best. So it's County, as you say, they've got the added advantage of infinite money, but they've got this disadvantage of, you might come into this job and get relegated. Like, you could torture. Tony Docherty has just torched his career in 18 weeks or something.
Yeah.
And the same thing could happen again. And as you said, there's not a load of tried and tested, really
but
good.
One of the
Morton can go to Edinburgh City. I was going to say, Morton can go to Edinburgh City and pick somebody up. They can go down to Stenhousemuir and pick somebody up. They can go down a league and get somebody who's on the upward turn. Ross County can't do that. Ross County can't gamble at this point. Ross County needs somebody who's going to come in and fix it.
No, they've got to take somebody who's on Sports Scene every week. But the problem is Sports Sound even. They've got half of them already. They've just sacked two of them. Sorry, Scott.
No, all I was going to say was just that the problem is they had a tried and trusted guy there but he was also the second guy, the assistant manager.
Yeah.
So it was in, because I think my dad said to me earlier today, he was like, oh, why have they no at least just kept Callum Davidson? I went, well, probably because he's saying the exact same things as what Tony Docherty's saying, and it clearly isn't working. So McGregor's just went, nah, I'll go elsewhere. There is a chance they possibly just say to John Robertson to maybe take the reins until the end of the season, just to see if he can potentially get them at least just the 7th or 8th, just to get out of the mess that they're in, and then look to the summer and potentially go after a bigger name that maybe they can maybe attract with a bit of money. Because, I mean, again, like, I'm trying to think of guys that even over the years that have been in the Championship and done well. One of them, but he's not even in the country, is Robbie Nielsen. He's in Belgium as an assistant manager. Again, you're probably then going to need to fork out a fair bit to get him out of Belgium to then come back over to Scotland. And then at the same time, is he going to leave to come to a 10th place team who are already now, is it 2 or 3 results away from actually being out of the bottom 2?
Mm-hmm. I tell you, the last manager who came into county and saved them from getting relegated was Mr. John Hughes.
John
That'd
Hughes,
be a storyline.
yeah.
But
anyway, he's probably not that far away from it.
Nah,
And if I know
don't
one thing about John Hughes, he can relegate teams.
And how?
But he can also tell you, because he stopped telling you about his Inverness team.
Yeah, that's true.
County fans will love that. Right, I tell you, let's leave it there. That was good fun. A couple more of them, please, Dougie. We'll be dead chuffed.
Especially on the 27th, please.
Yes, absolutely. Also, just very quickly, pass on a massive thank you to everybody behind the scenes with the supporters groups who came together to hand out nearly 1,000 selection boxes yesterday. It's just a really class wee thing to do, as much as anything. One of these things would be very easy not to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nobody's going to notice if you don't, but a lot of people noticed that you did.
A lot of hard work in the background for that kind of thing as well.
Definitely. And of course, thank you everybody for listening as well. We will be back later in the week to look forward to a game against the next set of mugs to go under the wheels of the Dougie bus. So we'll speak to you again then. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.